Hello, everybody. Welcome into Commodity Culture, where our goal is to make you a better investor in the commodities sector. My name is Jesse Day, and on this episode, I'm very excited to welcome Doug Casey to the program. A best-selling author, world-renowned speculator, and libertarian philosopher, and the founder of Casey Research and Doug Casey's International Man. We're going to get his thoughts on the escalating conflict in the Middle East and how the U.S. may play a role. Could this be the start of a new world war? And how would that impact financial markets, geopolitics, and the global economy? We're going to unpack the dizzying levels of debt and deficits in the US and increased government spending. What will it take for that house of cards to finally come crashing down? We're also going to get Doug's thoughts on the gold and silver markets, both the metals and the miners. Are gold and silver mining stocks finally starting to wake up? And what is the value proposition that he sees there? And so much more. Guys, we now have commodity culture merch, hats, t-shirts, mugs, hoodies, all backed by a 100% quality guarantee. Get yours by clicking the link in the description below. And now, my friends, strap yourselves in for my conversation with Doug Casey. Doug Casey, it is great to have you back on Commodity Culture. I want to kick things off with the rapidly escalating conflict between Israel and Iran, with the U.S. government, with the U.S. on the sidelines currently, although they have moved military forces to the area. They're hinting more and more at getting involved. What are your thoughts on the conflict at present, and how do you think it could impact both the geopolitical landscape and the global economy?
The way I see it, it's a war between the Hatfields and the McCoys that have been at each other's throats since day one. And when the U.S. gets involved in these things, it always makes things worse uh, for the world at large, as well as for American citizens. So it seems to me completely idiotic that Trump would get involved in this thing and take sides. It's as if he's treating Israel as the 51st state of the U.S. And by pushing Iran the way he is, he actually could start World War III. These things spin out of control. They're unpredictable. They last a lot longer than you expect. It creates extra hatred. So the best thing that the U.S. could do is just back off. I'm not a so-called isolationist, simply a non-interventionist. These people have to sort things out between themselves, not our problem. You make it your problem. It's like you break it, you bought it. And if the U.S. If the U.S. loses, however you want to define loses, it'll be a huge embarrassment for the U.S. and it'll lose what little credibility it has left. And if the U.S. wins and there's a regime change in Iran, I'm not a fan of the mullahs, incidentally, at all. Um, Perhaps Iran will experience some secessionist movements. The Kurds might break off. The Azeris might want to break off. About two-thirds of the population of Iran are ethnic Persians. It's an old country. It's been around 2,500 years or more, but none of our business. So that's my answer to the question.
Yeah, I completely agree with the none of our business part. Why is it that America seems to be so dead set on getting involved in conflicts like this? Do you think this is a classic snatch and grab of resources where they're hoping to get involved to get access to oil reserves? Do you think one of their motivations could be that they can then distract the American populace from troubles at home, economically? So many people in debt these days, the middle class is sort of in their own recession. Politically, Trump hasn't been delivering on a lot of the promises he made. Do you think them entering the war in their minds is a good way to distract the public from all of this?
Well, war is the health of the state, and it does distract people from domestic problems. But this is an extremely high-risk game to be playing. If anything, Netanyahu, who rules Israel, is on the ragged edge of being dethroned. He's got a better motive for starting a war than anybody, which impresses me as incredibly stupid. I there's no reason to believe. Well, what do we know? Frankly, all we know is what we hear um, in the media and read in the papers. But how much of that is accurate? Nobody knows. How much of it is pure propaganda? Nobody knows. Uh, and it's long been the case that truth is the first casualty of any war. So you can't believe anything when this is going on. Look, the people that run countries are not the best and brightest of the country. They're the poorest and worst kind of people. They're people that like to control other people. They're narcissists. They're professional busybodies on an international scale. And it's absolutely completely insane and unnecessary. And the Iranians are being made into the bad guys here. Uh, they say it's a terrorist state. And certainly, I'm against any kind of a theocracy. But then again, Israel is technically a theocracy too. But uh, look, all you can do is just stay away from these people when they're having a squabble between themselves, something that's been going on since, well, forever. The U.S. knows nothing about this. It was indicative when Tucker Carlson interviewed oh
Ted
God, who is
Cruz.
Ted Cruz? Yes. It demonstrated the fact that Cruz, who's probably one of the higher IQ members of the Congress, actually didn't know anything about Iran at all. Uh, I shouldn't be talking about Iran. I've been to 155 countries. I've lived in a dozen. I'm talking to you right now from Uruguay, as a matter of fact. But the closest I've come to Iran was years ago. I was invited as part of the New Zealand Ambassadors Polo Club on an all-expense paid junket to Iran to play polo in three different cities in Iran. Unfortunately, I was injured just before the damn thing took place, and it's one of my great regrets that I missed 2 weeks in Iran, which would allow me to talk with a little bit more authority now about the country. But anyway, listen, nobody knows anything about what's going on. So when that's the case, just stay out of it.
And now a quick break to hear from our sponsor, ARC Silver Gold Osmium owner Ian Everard is considered one of the most honest and level-headed gold and silver dealers in the United States, praised even by his competitors. So give him a call today to take advantage of the specials right now. Silver Kangaroos 2023 1-ounce coins, mint fresh, only $2.47 over spot. Mint Fresh Silver Maple Leafs 2025 coins, 1 ounce, $2.87 over spot. While supplies last. Reach out today at 307-264-9441 or by email at ian@arcsgo.com and make sure to tell him that Commodity Culture sent you. And now, back to the interview. I think Ted Cruz, he mentioned that he read in his Bible studies when he was young or something that, everybody, blessed are those who support Israel, cursed are those who go against it. By the way, a complete misinterpretation of the Bible. That's like a modern interpretation. The state of Israel as it is today did not exist however long ago that those verses were written. It did not refer to Israel, and it certainly did not refer to, Netanyahu having to support some madman. But that begs the question, why is he saying this stuff? We all know about AIPAC and their influence over the members of US Congress. For a while, this subject was taboo. It's starting to become less so, I feel, although, of course, you will get accusations of being called an anti-Semite as soon as you bring it up. Do you think that the US government has been deeply infiltrated by AIPAC and by Israeli influence? And could that be the reason why idiots like Ted Cruz are going out there and talking about the Bible says we must support Israel, and all of these politicians in lockstep seem to be behind Israel and, calling for them to be able to freely attack Iran as they choose?
Well, I'm sure that as the eventual dust-up between Pakistan and India gets worse, the Indians are going to be quoting from the Vedas or the Bhagavad Gita, and the Pakistanis will be quoting from the Koran. So you can find all kinds of goofy excuses for a for for a war. This is if they keep up this nonsense, it can end badly. I mean, we just don't know what's going on there. And the fact of the matter is that the Iranians have not invaded any other countries, have not conducted any terrorist operations, so-called, except against the Israelis. It's it's kind of the hobby horse they ride on. So they don't like the Israelis, and the Israelis don't like them. That's a great reason for the U.S. to get involved. Uh, Israel is not our 51st state. I wish them well, and I wish the Iranians well. I'm not. Eventually, listen, they're going to overthrow those mullahs because Iran has one of the least free economies on the planet. It's not very prosperous. The average Iranian is well educated and sophisticated. I don't know how religious they are, frankly, but the mullahs are on their way out anyway, just the natural course of things. So leave it alone, and Iran will become a perfectly normal country. But yet, if we get involved with you know, blowing things up over there. And I think I've heard that Netanyahu is trying to convince Trump to use a tactical nuclear device to take out. Well, wait a minute. Netanyahu has 200 of his own nuclear devices. If he really wants to be crazy, why doesn't he do it himself? He's using the U.S. as a cat's paw. I mean, this is crazy. And does Israel control the U.S. Congress? Well, I don't know how many congressmen were involved in honeypot actions with Epstein recently, and Epstein was clearly working for the Israelis. So, unless a bunch of congressmen want the beans spilled on them, I guess they would tend to be favoring Israel, which is not our friend. We don't need Israel. Israel is Israel's friend.
Yeah, I think you're kind of spot on there with the blackmailing because I mean we have to remember that Elon Musk came out on X and bluntly said it. Donald Trump is on the Epstein list. I don't think he would have said that just to poke him because that's an extraordinarily serious allegation that could potentially put Musk's life in danger. So I don't think he would just say that because they were having an unfriendly spat and oh well, I'm going to just say this about him. I think there's more there, and of course it's now being swept under the rug by both sides, and everybody who supports Trump just forgot that it ever happened. Come on, guys, just be friends. It's a massive circus out there. And speaking of
You're absolutely
circuses,
right, Johnson. Yeah. No,
yeah.
you're absolutely right.
Debt levels worldwide is another circus we have to keep our eyes on. When we're looking at the US specifically, the Trump administration came in with the mission to cut government spending, put the Doge committee together. I think for most people who were paying attention, nobody expected big things out of them, but it seems to have been a complete failure. Trump's increasing the military budget next year to 1 trillion. Treasury has to refinance 9 trillion, issue 2.5 trillion in new debt this year. We got the big beautiful bill. We got all sorts of government spending and of course the entitlement spending when it comes to Medicare, Medicaid, and all of that stuff is a massive chunk of it that also not a lot of people are paying attention to. How long can this Ponzi scheme keep on going for? How long can they kick this can down the road? And what could be the ultimate result of its eventual collapse?
Economists that have thought about these things have been predicting a disaster since the 60s. In other words, a disaster has been clear for the last 60 years. Well, can they kick the can down the road forever? I don't think so. Um, and it's funny when Trump was elected. Well, you were presented with two choices in the U.S. Kamala Harris, a manifestly stupid and corrupt communist, or Donald Trump, who said all kinds of good things. So I'm not, as an anarcho-capitalist, uh, I like to disregard politics. But of course, I supported Trump presented with that choice, especially since he's a cultural conservative and wanted to overthrow the destruction of wokeism, which he's done and is still doing. Wonderful. That's great. He wanted to cut down on the invasion of the U.S. by tens of millions of migrants. He's done that. Great. But Doge, I thought, was going to be a wonderful thing. And Elon Musk did a fantastic job exposing massive corruption all over the place for scores of hundreds of billions, even hundreds of billions of dollars. But in this gigantic bill that Trump put forward, 1,000 pages of things that you must do, things that you must not do, and new taxes to pay for it all, there's almost no reflection of any of the breakthroughs that Doge made. Doge is kind of a dead duck at this point. So that, and Trump is very interested in acting like an emperor that rules the world, sticking his nose into everywhere. So I'm glad that I'm living on a farm in Uruguay, quite frankly, because we could be looking at World War III in the next few weeks, if not the next few months.
Well, let's certainly hope it doesn't come to that. And another risk that I've been hearing about more recently is that of civil war. So not only the World War III potentially unleashing, but that Western countries could experience civil conflict. I was listening to an interesting podcast with a guy called Professor David Betts. He's a Canadian professor. He lives in the UK. His specialty is studying civil wars throughout history, what causes them. And his belief is that a civil war in the UK is absolutely inevitable, given the mass amount of migration, the big conflict that's occurring there, the increased crime rates, a government that just does not care whatsoever about its citizens, not even a little bit. I mean, it's kind of insane. The medical system's in shambles. A lot of these things are mirroring Canada as well. I'm wondering what your thoughts are on the potential for civil war breaking out in countries like the UK and Canada, perhaps the US, obviously, as we can see, these anti-ICE riots escalated quite a bit. There's obviously a side there that would love to have some sort of civil war erupt, whether it's George Soros and his NGOs. What are your thoughts there?
I think civil war is inevitable in a number of countries. The best solution, rather than have a civil war, it's better that parts of the country that share a culture, share ethnicity, share religion, values, all this type of thing, simply secede. Nothing lasts forever, quite frankly. And I think that the U.S. is going to break up at some point. It's turned into a multicultural domestic empire where people no longer uh, share values. They don't share religion and ethnicity. And there's half of the economy goes through Washington, D.C., and the favored groups get distributions, which antagonizes everybody else. And it's pretty much the same thing in England. They have a real problem with Muslim immigration. And Muslims, more than any other group, I think, in the world, take their religion very seriously. And they want to live by their own laws, but that's incompatible with the country of Britain. And Canada, we've got 40 million people in Canada, but there's a net immigration of about 1.5 million people every year. They're almost all from the subcontinent, either Hindus or mostly Muslims from Pakistan. And Canada's in exactly the same kind of trouble. So the colors of the map on the wall are going to be running in the future. Not to mention that not a single country, well, actually there are a couple, but out of the 54 countries in Africa, almost none of them are real countries. They were all artificially created on the boardrooms of Europe with different tribes and religious groups and so forth, uh, Africa is going to be in a total state of war in the years to come, and all these so-called countries are going to break up and reform into something different. This is even true of Europe. I mean, Yugoslavia broke up peaceably, well, kind of peaceably, into six countries. The Soviet Union broke up into, was it 15 countries, kind of peaceably. Uh, but this could happen in Spain. It could happen in France. Scotland could easily break off from the rest of England, rest of the UK, and it should. So, yeah, the colors on the wall of the map are going to be running in the future, and a lot of it's going to be violent.
Let's talk about gold for a moment here because it's came within an inch recently of closing above previous all-time highs, showing tremendous strength. I mean, it appears to be the perfect storm for gold at this point in time with all of this geopolitical uncertainty, economic risk worldwide, the massive debt and deficits we were speaking about. What are your thoughts on the gold market right now, and what stage of the gold bull market do you think we're in?
Well, I've been a gold bull ever since I started to learn something about economics. So I bought my first gold coins back in 1971 after I read Harry Brown's excellent book, You Can Profit from the Coming Devaluation. So I've been buying it for the last 50 years, haven't sold any of it, accumulated quite a bit. I've used it mainly as a savings vehicle because gold is money in its most basic form. And I believe it's going to be recognized again and instituted as money between nations. But to answer your question directly, right now, let's say gold is $3,400 an ounce. Um, it's no longer cheap, which it used to be. If you compare the price of gold to other prices, price of a suit, price of a meal, price of a house, gold is, I'd say, about where it should, quote unquote, be. It's no longer a bargain basement thing. I continue to buy it because it's the only financial asset that's not simultaneously somebody else's liability. Well, that's also true of Bitcoin, but that's a different subject. But I think the case can be made that gold could go 10 to 1 from where it is. In other words, to 30 or $40,000 an ounce. How could that be? Because if the dollar at some point is going to be redeemable, 1 for 1 with gold, well, not 1 for 1, but at a fixed ratio, uh, that can only be done at a vastly higher price of gold. So I remain bullish, not just because the trend is in motion upwards, and the trend is generally your friend, but because if it's reinstituted as money, it's going to have to be at a much higher price. All you have to do is, look, it's 261 million, they say, ounces of gold owned by the US government. You divide that into the number of dollars that are here and the number of dollars that are outside the US. It leads you to a much higher price of gold. There's likely to be a panic into gold because all of these currencies, the dollar first and foremost, they're just fiat currencies. They can be created out of thin air, and governments are doing that more and more and more because all the governments of the world are bankrupt, not least of which is the US government.
Do you think we could see gold reintroduced into the monetary system in one form or another? I've heard that nations are more than ever, maybe not more than ever in history, obviously, but in recent history, actually settling trades using gold in some form or another. We had a lot of talk previously about the BRICS gold-backed currency. That seems to have died down. How would do you, first of all, do you think gold could be reintroduced into the monetary system, whether that's within countries or whether that's, BRICS nations trading with each other? And how do you think such a new gold standard, so to speak, would work in practice?
Well, like I was just saying, yes, it's going to happen because none of these governments trust each other. And all of the currencies of the world are just paper figments. You can't, are you going to look, when the Russians and the Chinese traded with each other in the past, well, still today, they use the dollar. They don't use the yuan and the ruble. They don't trust each other's funny money currency. Uh, they still use the dollar because everybody else has decided that they want to use the dollar. But the dollar has no intrinsic value. It's backed by absolutely nothing. So as all of these governments, which are all bankrupt, as I said, get more and more out of control, there's going to be less and less trust between governments. How are they going to trade? How are they going to settle if they can't use each other's funny money fiat currencies? Are they going to use matchsticks? Are they going to use wampum or beaver skins? No. They'll use gold, which is uniquely suited uh, for use as money. Its characteristics, the characteristics of gold make it the best possible alternative for money. It's durable. That's why you don't use wheat as money. It's divisible. That's why you don't use artwork as money. It's convenient. That's why you don't use lead as money. It's consistent. That's why you don't use real estate as money. It has value in and of itself, which is why you shouldn't use paper as money. And the supply is limited. So gold is the best possible money.
What are your thoughts on silver at present? We've seen it break and stay pretty consistently above $36 an ounce. How do you currently view the silver market? What do you think are the catalysts that could drive silver higher in your view?
You know, I guess one thing you can do is you can look at the gold silver ratio. And in in the days of ancient Egypt, the gold silver ratio was 3 to 1. Roman times, about 12 to 1. Uh, Up until recently in the West, it was generally about 15 to 1, 17 to 1. Now, it's gotten as high as 120 to 1. So I think it's about 90 to 1 right now. Answer to the question, I guess, is that all the gold that's ever been mined basically is still in existence somewhere. It's being hoarded as money. Silver is mainly an industrial metal. There's about 10 times more ounces of silver mined every year than there are ounces of gold. 10 to 1 ratio, not very meaningful. But all the silver is consumed one way or another. And it's a high-tech metal. It's the most reflective, and it's the most conductive of heat, most conductive of electricity. So that it's got a great future in technology, and it's a poor man's gold. Uh, a Krugerrand or a maple leaf or an eagle, they go for about $3,500 a piece. Uh, so I think silver makes sense as for day-to-day transactions, not at a fixed ratio. You can't fix the ratio between gold and silver, but you can have two things used as money. I'm really bullish on silver, to answer the question. It's the poor man's gold.
What about the gold and silver mining sector? Because it looks like both are starting to wake up right now. If we look at the GDX, it's greatly outperformed gold so far year to date. The SIL ETF has also greatly outperformed silver year to date. I spoke to Adrian Day recently. He thinks when it comes to the gold miners, even Agnico Eagle, close to its all-time highs at present, is greatly undervalued if we look at its profit margins and the amount of gold it's producing. What are your current thoughts on the gold and silver mining space? Is there opportunity there at present?
Well, let's talk about producing mines. Agnico Eagle is certainly one of the best. Uh, there's a metric called all-in sustaining costs of mining. That's not just the cash cost of mining the next ounce of gold at the mine face, but corporate overhead and the cost of replacing reserves and the projected future cost of covering over the mine and making it green again, all this type of thing. The average cost of an ounce of gold to be mined using that metric, all in sustaining costs, is about $1,400 or $1,500 per ounce. Gold are at 3,400. Mining companies are minting money right now. They're very, very profitable, but nobody wants to own them. Why aren't people piling into mining companies? Well, first of all, because generally mining is a crappy business. Uh, to build a mine, it costs you millions or tens of millions to discover a deposit, and you're going to you're going to look at a lot of things that you think are a deposit that aren't. And then to develop it, it's going to cost tens or hundreds of millions. And then to build it could cost billions. And this is all up front uh, before you get your first whiff of a profit. So it's a terrible business, okay? Saying that, though, I've specialized in these mines for many years, in mining for many years. Why? Because the mining business is very, very volatile. Really high highs and really low lows. And right now, relative to other stocks, relative to almost everything, mining companies, gold mining companies in particular, are at about the cheapest level in history. And in the last 50 years, since gold was liberated by price suppression of the US government at $35 an ounce, um, we've had about five bull markets where the average gold stock has gone 10 to 1. Some have gone 100 to 1. Some have gone 1,000 to 1. Not over many years, but over 3 or 4 years. So I think we're going into a really, really major bull market on mining stocks in general and gold mining stocks in particular. So that's the place to be.
I want to get your thoughts on the energy sector because we have seen quite a spike in the price of WTI crude since Israel's first attack on Iran. There's concern out there about Israel potentially causing major damage to Iranian oil production. Of course, Iran has already threatened to close the Strait of Hormuz, an area where so much of the world's oil goes through. Both of these factors would be extraordinarily negative for global oil supplies. Normally, oil prices that spike on headlines or wartime events tend to be short lived. Could it be different this time if this conflict continues the way that it is?
Yeah, it might, because Iran is a real country. It's not a little pipsqueak country. I mean, in the past, the U.S. has invaded Grenada, a nothing country. It's invaded Panama, a nothing country. When it's invaded larger countries like well, Vietnam or Iraq or Afghanistan, it's been very expensive and it's taken a long time. So there's no guarantee that this thing with Iran is going to blow over. And the Iranians control a couple of major passageways. And to put pressure on the U.S., I mean, the U.S. doesn't import any oil from the Middle East, really. It doesn't at all. I mean, at the moment, the U.S. is net positive in oil production. It doesn't have to import any. But the rest of the world does, and the rest of the world won't like the fact that the U.S. has fomented a war with the Iranians, who will understandably use the weapons that they can, which is stopping ships going through the straits. So I think there's a good chance that oil is going to go well over $100 an ounce. That's not a prediction, but the average cost, and of course, the cost of lifting a barrel of oil varies widely, depending on all kinds of things. But let's say that worldwide, you really need $60, $65 oil to break even, as a general rule. Uh, I think oil's got a lot more upside potential than it has downside risks at this point. But I'm especially bullish talking about, energy commodities on uranium, which is by far, nuclear power is by far the safest and the cheapest and the cleanest form of mass power generation. And it's coming back into its own again, especially with newer generations of reactors. So there's plenty of cause for being optimistic about things, in addition to plenty of reason to be pessimistic about what these stupid governments are going to do and what wars they're going to foment.
Yeah, boy, are you preaching to the choir when it comes to both oil and uranium. I'm very, very bullish on both of those commodities in particular. I'm before I let you go, I want to ask if there's any other commodities. We've spoken obviously about gold and silver, oil. You touched on uranium there. Is there anywhere else that you're looking for opportunity right now in the commodity space, whether that's copper and base metals, antimony, an interesting story these days, and anything else that you're watching at present?
Natural gas. I like natural gas even more than oil for a number of reasons. And agricultural commodities, corn, wheat, soybeans. I think they're all bouncing along the bottom right now. Uh, and so I'm long the grain commodities. Things like orange juice and cocoa and coffee, you know, they're above their equilibrium levels. No, the grains would be the other things along with natural gas that I look at.
Great. Well, Doug, this has been a fantastic conversation. Before I do let you go, tell us about Doug Casey's Crisis Investing, your YouTube channel, Doug Casey's Take, and anywhere else people can connect with you online.
Well, I think the easiest and the best thing first would be internationalman.com. I write an essay there every week. David Stockman, old friend of mine, also writes an essay there. It's free. We've got some absolutely great Chris McIntosh. We've got great writers. It's completely free. So go to internationalman.com and subscribe. You'll be glad you did. On YouTube, Doug Casey's Take. That's something. And also, I don't think many people are aware of the fact that uh, I'm working on a septet of novels, the first three of which have been done. Speculator, about a gold mining venture and a bush war in Africa. And our hero then becomes a drug lord, and he becomes the third book is Assassin, where he gets pissed off and decides some people need killing. And the next one that we're working on now is rather topical. It's going to be called Terrorist. I have a lot of theories about terrorism as a method of warfare. So go on Amazon, and those novels are really a good read. And then they're going to get more radical after Terrorist.
Great. I'll put a link below to International Man as well as your YouTube channel and some of your books so people can check all of that out. Thank you once again, Doug, for coming on and sharing your knowledge with the audience.
No, it's a pleasure, Jesse. Thank you.
And thank you for joining us today. Take advantage of ARC Silver Gold Osmium specials right now. Silver Kangaroos, 2023 1-ounce coins, only $2.47 over spot. Silver Maple Leafs, 2025 1-ounce coins, just $2.87 over spot. Well supplies last. Reach out to owner Ian Everard today at 307-264-9441 or by email at ian@arcsgo.com. And make sure to tell him that Commodity Culture sent you. And make sure to get your hat, t-shirt, hoodie, or mug, or grab one of each. There's a 100% quality guarantee. If anything's wrong, you get your money back or the product replaced. Click the link in the description below, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Commodity Culture is a series on commodities and natural resources. If you would like to see more, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification so you're always up to date with the latest episodes.